And it is so awesome to see you guys. Good morning. This is my favorite event because it's so fun. So I'm super excited to talk to you this morning about commitment and imperfection. Is sort of the little added bonus I added to this month's theme was imperfection. First of all, I want to say thank you very much to the union for hosting us today. I do sit on the board here, and I am extremely proud to be part of this organization. It is an extraordinary place doing extraordinary things in Omaha. You should support it in every way you can. So thank you to the union. Second of all, commitment. So speaking of commitments, when I committed to giving this talk, it was a different talk. The talk I wanted to give about commitment started with this story of a 100-day challenge, a thing we started at Flywheel last summer, an initiative I was in the middle of at the time. I was faithfully committed to my marathon training. I was in the middle of, and I could not wait to tell you all about making it 100 days on that commitment. It was going to be great, you guys. It was going to be such a good talk. It was going to be inspirational, with lots of advice about building and keeping great habits and the virtue of doing things every single day and never missing a day, no days off. And then 48 days into that challenge, life happened, and I missed a day. And I broke the commitment, broke my streak. And not only that, I totally struggled with that. Kind of toppled me over. And from it, this conversation was born. So let me track back for a minute here. That's me. My name's Karen Borchert, and among being a runner and a mom to this young lady here, as well as two other young gentlemen, I am a really big fan of goals. Goals are kind of my love language. We could say that. It's not that I'm a high-achieving, ambitious, crazy perfectionist, so occasionally that happens too, but a shared goal or a commitment to work on together is the way I connect. It's the way I connect with people, and it's the way I grew up learning to connect with others. This is a fun way to grow up if you want to be a high achiever. It is a less fun way to grow up if you want to be invited to a lot of parties. But these days, I found my people. I am lucky enough to work at Flywheel. So we're a software company here in Omaha and around the world. And I say lucky because I get to work alongside about 140 of the most brilliant and creative people who bravely commit to and achieve goals together, unlike any other company I've ever seen before. It's an inspiring place to go to work every day. So we're growing really, really quickly. And when you're growing quickly, it's pretty important to make sure you're growing together in the same direction, right? So one of my main jobs at Flywheel is to help our team set and achieve goals that push us all forward. That's right, goals are my whole job. So at Flywheel, as if that wasn't enough, we have an awesome group of people who are so into goals that outside of work goals, they also like to hang out and talk about their personal goals. It's a group called Personal Goals. These are my people, right? So last year, we hatched this idea of this 100-day challenge. Everyone, you can imagine exactly whose idea this was. It was me. And we said, okay, let's see what we could commit to doing for 100 days in a row. Everybody choose one thing. It can be anything, but you commit to doing it for 100 days in a row. And the rules of the 100-day challenge were super simple. Everyone had to report in every day, and if you missed a day, you were out. Who wants to guess how our all-or-nothing approach to goals turned out? It started out great. So of course, we got so excited. We announced it to the whole company that we were doing it. We oh yeah, I mean, you know where this is going. We announced it to the whole company. We were like rallying. We were so excited. It was like a weekend. Everybody's like, making it. This is happening. They're meditating. They're running. Everything's happening. It is awesome. 100 days in a row. And like 14 days later, there's like 20 of us left. And then like 5 days after that, there's like 12 of us left. It sucked because I had this whole picture in my head of the big celebration party we were going to have on the 100th day. There was going to be like a keg and a pony, and we were going to celebrate. We were like 100 days, or there's just going to be a pony keg. Either way, anyway. So I had this whole idea in my head, and it was awesome. And by the 100th day, it was this guy and me eating cold cut sandwiches. I hate cold cut sandwiches. In the lunchroom. And I was like, so you made it to 100 days? And he was like, yeah, you did too. And I was like, cool. He's like, cool. Then we went back to work. So that happened. And naturally, of course, after that abysmal failure, I immediately suggested we do it again. So we did. But of course I did. So with a new rule, that if you missed a day, you kept going. And every person kept track of their overall score of days in the 100 days. So the results got better. So, the first few days, everybody was like 1 out of 1, 5 out of 5, 6 out of 6, 7 out of 7. And then all of a sudden it was like 18 out of 19. And then 21 out of 22. And then 20 out of 25. I had the flu last week, right? And it was great. And at the end of it, which was just recently, 1st of May, there were still like 2 or 3 people who made it all the way through. I was not one of them. And there were a ton of people who were like, look, I was going to make 100 loaves of bread, and I made 17 loaves of bread, but I've never made 17 loaves of bread before. And I was like, that is great. That is so good. I am so proud of you. I hated it. I hated it. For myself, I didn't make it. I missed a couple of days while on family vacation, prioritizing my family over running, God forbid, and I missed it. And while I really, really, really wanted to love the imperfection of making almost all of the goal, I actually hated it. I was all about saying this and nothing about living this. So we know that sticking with it and holding on through the imperfect score holds value. We know that. We've heard progress over perfection, and we know it's right and true. It's right and true on the slide, it's right and true on paper, it sounds so good. But at work, on Strava, on Instagram, at family gatherings, it doesn't feel true. Because the moment we fail a commitment, everyone else out there seems to be crushing their goals. And that's where the conflict lies. The question is, how might we reconcile these opposing forces and let ourselves keep going towards progress, even in the face of imperfection? How do we walk away feeling awesome about our goals and the commitments that we make, and therefore keep going, even when life gets in the way? So, goals are my love language, but data is the way that I see the world. It's my primary form of communication, and I love it. So to figure out the answer to this question, how imperfection and commitment might start to play a little bit nicer together, I started asking my colleagues and friends a lot of questions about why they make commitments and what they're hoping to achieve and how they feel about their goals and how much they love their work and how flexible they are with the result and how they feel about the goals after they were more flexible about the result. I may have run a survey of all of the people that did 100 days challenge, and I may have compiled it into a data visualization. I am a lot of fun at parties, folks. So let's dig into it, right? So first, it's kind of necessary to talk about why we do this, right? So I want to talk a little bit about commitment. So I'm going to kind of simplify for today, because it's only a 20-minute talk. We commit for a lot of reasons. We commit to things and make commitments for a lot of reasons. But in terms of this talk, we commit to goals in order to improve our lives in some ways, in order to grow. So when we think about where we are now versus where we want to be, that delta, that space between, usually includes some kind of improvement of our minds, our bodies, our hearts, our relationships, our words, our actions. Commitments take us a little further up that curve, a little closer to where we want to be. We commit in order to grow. But what about those commitments that have nothing to do with growth, right? So sometimes we are committed for other reasons or by other people. We commit because we feel pressure, and we say yes to a creative project because we need the money, even if we don't really want to do it. Or we show up at a family gathering, even though it causes a lot of emotional stress. So I don't think those are actually commitments. I think those are obligations. And for the purposes of today, we're going to call those things obligations, and the things that we choose to do in order to grow commitment. So, back to the data visualization. Did I mention I love data? From all my highly informal and not at all scientific research, I built this highly questionable and not at all reputable theory, that there are kind of two things that change the way and drive the way that we feel about those commitments that we make, the things that we feel awesome about and the things that we feel awful about. The first is how much we love the work itself, and the second is how flexible we are willing to be with the result. So, how do I feel about my goals? This is such a squishy question. I was sitting back there and I was like, so these are the orange ones are the ones that you feel bad about, and then the green ones are the ones that you feel good about. And like half of all of you were like, cool, so feel about the goal. So I feel awesome, I feel not awesome. I know it's squishy, but how you feel about the goal is actually a lot more important than whether or not you made it to the letter of the law, right? You can, as I did, fail to meet your marathon goal time and still feel amazing about that goal knowing you gave it everything you've got. And you can 100% meet your goal about getting a big promotion and totally regret all the time that you missed with your kids in trying to pursue that goal. So for today, we're talking about goals we feel awesome about and goals we feel not awesome about. Because the goals we'll feel great about, those are the goals that we're going to keep after. Those are the commitments we're going to keep making to ourselves and to others. So first, we're going to talk about the first question. So how much do you enjoy the work itself? And a lot of you participate in this. The really funny thing about writing a talk about these questions and then having a live data visualization is that everything in these slides might be wrong based on all of the data that you just created. Turns out it's not, but it could have been. So that's always fun. So when I asked participants in the 100 Days Challenge how much they love the work itself, I got really varying results. It turns out people set goals and commitments all the time for things they think they should do, but actually do not enjoy doing at all. At all. I mean, but we all know it's easier to commit to and keep a commitment on something that we love doing. Of course it is, right? I have an easier time committing to eating ice cream every day for 100 days than I do to committing to studying French every day for 100 days because foreign languages make my brain hurt. But let us remind ourselves of the why, right? So the reason most of us don't set goals and around taking naps or watching as many episodes on Netflix as possible as we can, we don't see those things as achieving the goals of growth or improvement, right? So there's a little bit of tension in that. I set goals to improve myself, but I don't always love the work. And how do I reconcile that? So I asked people on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love the work itself? So 1, you hate it. I'm only doing it because I made this goal and I won't give up the goal because I'm stubborn and I'm not going to give up the goal and I hate the work. And then on the other side is a 10, like you would do it joyfully even if there wasn't a goal around it. So for me, it's something like cleaning my house is a 2, and running 10 miles is like an 8, sometimes a 7, and like eating ice cream while not studying French, that's like a 10, right? So finding that sweet spot where work that you love but still grows you as a person, helps you improve as a person, that's kind of what we're all after. The second question is, how flexible are you with the result, right? So how flexible can you be? So this is a really hard one to name. I named it a whole bunch of things in the process of this. How flexible are you with the result? Sometimes you can and sometimes you can't be flexible, right? I also called this at one point, how much grace for failure? But it's really not about failure. It's really about how you define success in the goal. So flexibility does not equate to being willing to fail. On the contrary, there are some commitments and goals that have a wider view of what success means. So we'll take, again, my dumb marathon example here to explain. So I set a really, really specific time initially, goal time of 3 hours and 45 minutes for this marathon, because I want to run the Boston Marathon someday. And you have to, my particular age, run a qualifying time of 3 hours and 45 minutes in order to be allowed to run the Boston Marathon because they are mean. They are mean. That is what that is. So my other main goal of the marathon, though, because I haven't run a marathon in 15 years, my other main goal was to just not die. So if I'd said 3:45 or nothing at all, I would have been like a 1 on that flexibility scale. But if I was out there to I'm just out there to finish, whatever is cool, I'm good, or like maybe 25 miles, I don't know, that'd be like a 10, right? So on this one, I happened to come in at like a 5-6, was interested in that goal, but also not willing to die. So just like loving the work, flexibility is easier in some cases than others. So it's easy to be flexible when the result of your pottery class that you're taking after work, pot falls off the wheel, no big deal. You just go home. It's fine. Have a glass of wine. But it's harder with work commitments and things that you've made to folks whose opinion might really matter of you, things where the stakes are higher. So again, there's tension. How do we find goals and commitments that grow us without making us crazy rigid about the results and drive ourselves completely insane? You know what's coming. We're going to put them all together in 4 quadrants. We're going to do it, you guys. Here's how it's going to go. So we're going to see how they fit together. So this is, if you can see it, love the work. So love of the work itself, top. Not so much love of the work there at the bottom. That's that scale. Your y-axis, if you will. You're into math this morning. Whoops. And then flexibility here on the bottom. So not at all flexible with the result over here on the left, and then real flexible over here on the right. And something happens kind of throughout, right? So we're going to kind of see where people fall. Now, if you happen to hang out near the data visualization at the back, before you leave, you're going to see some really interesting, you're going to see little flags in all of the quadrants. And I'll remind you that orange flags are the stuff we don't feel so great about, and the green ones are the ones that we feel really awesome about. So we're gonna start with this bottom right one, and we're gonna talk about that one. So no love, very flexible. This is the quadrant of goals that we quit. If we don't love the work, we've made a commitment, we hate it, and we're very, very, very flexible about the result, very often we'll be like, bye. I'm letting it go. That one's out of here. I feel this way about folding laundry. Now, there's 2 ways that you can handle a goal in this quadrant. You can either quit the goal, or you can live with somebody who does the goal. Sometimes you have to find somebody to live with that does the goal. So that's the laundry quadrant. Then there's this quadrant. No love, not flexible. Everybody's like, oh, that sounds terrible. Nobody likes the idea of this. Even over at the board, people were like, no, that doesn't sound good. This is the martyrs quadrant. You know these people. Every one of us has been these people. This is the person who shows up at the gym every freaking day just to tell you how much they hate the gym. They hate it. They hate being there. They want to talk about how expensive the gym is. They want to talk about how hot the gym is. They want to talk about everything they hate about the freaking gym, but they can't stop coming back. They're torturing themselves. We all do this about something. So don't be like, oh yeah, I know those people. You are those people. We're all those people. So that's the martyrs quadrant. Hate the work, not flexible. Now we're going to get up into some of the fun parts here. So lots of love, not very flexible. You're going to notice, this was my theory and I was right, that the most flags on our board ended up in this quadrant. This is where so much of work lives. Many of us are lucky enough to choose jobs and work that we love. It's a really amazing thing, and it's important to note that that is also a really lucky thing. But a lot of us are really inflexible about that work. We are steadfast in making sure those goals happen. We absolutely have to make it happen. And that's a good thing. This is a very high-achieving quadrant. If you're a high achiever, you spend a lot of time here. If you spend all of your time here, you freaking burn yourself out. right? So this is where I put teaching a child to read. I love my children. I love teaching them to read, actually. It's an absolutely joyful project. However, I'm pretty inflexible about it. Like, I'm not okay with knowing 20 out of 26 letters. Like, all 26, every single one. All of the reading, the whole reading. Now, if I were to say, I'm going to teach my child to read in 2 weeks, that would be a goal I could be a little bit more flexible about. But just like learning to read, like, we got to do that one. So there's just some stuff that's just not very flexible. And it's work we love, and that's okay. And by the way, in case anyone knows, that is definitely not my child, and that is definitely not how cute kids are when they're learning to read. That's true. So finally, we have the lots of love, very flexible quadrant. I'm very happy to say that this is the second highest number of flags back there, which is, I think, in part because this is a group of really creative and amazing people. So this is kind of what I call the flow quadrant, right? This is where you love the work, you're flexible with the result, but it's still growing you, it's still taking you somewhere. This is nice work when you can get it, but it's totally the holy grail. So this is stuff, you can make a living in the top right quadrant, you should make a living in the top right quadrant. It's a really, really, really fun place to be. So those are our 4 quadrants, and you're like, sweet, nice map, Borchert, who cares? So back to the problem we're trying to solve about feeling awesome or not awesome about our goals. The problem that we're trying to solve is, how do we move, as we say at Flywheel, up and to the right? So we have a joke at Flywheel that if you ever show any chart or graph to any member of our board, the whole goal is just move the thing up and to the right. That's always the goal, just up and to the right. That's always a good place. So how do we move up towards the upper right quadrant? What takes us there? So let's take them one at a time. So how do we increase the love of our work? How do you go from hating the work to loving the work on a specific goal? So we increase love of work by increasing connection. People who love work and people who love the work they're doing often have some kind of connection to it. That might be because of who they work with, it might be where they work, it might be the team of people they've surrounded themselves with, but you can increase your love of work by increasing connection, right? That feels fairly logical. But the way, when you think about it, that you increase the love of a commitment and of the work and increasing connection is by letting those people in, by letting life in, right? So we go for a run, but we do it at the park with our kids. And we don't worry about the fact that it might not be as far or as fast, right? We take on a really hard project at work, but we ask if maybe our mentor could also be on that project because it increases the connection and it makes it better. Increasing the connection by letting people in. Increasing the connection by letting imperfection in. You know where this is going. So how do we increase our flexibility with the outcome, right? What's the other side? So that's up. How do we go right? How do we go there? So increasing flexibility is accomplished by increasing or improving perspective. And I'll give you a really kind of extreme example just to make the point. So one of the things that you hear from people who are in treatment for life-threatening illnesses or who have gone through a life-altering injury is, this changed my perspective, right? You hear of people quitting their jobs and their big careers to travel the world, prioritizing their bucket list over their finances, prioritizing creative pursuits. Why? Because their perspective has shifted, and what was important and inflexible became important and flexible, right? So improving flexibility is about improving perspective, making a decision consciously before it is challenging or before you have to, that maybe we could be a little bit more flexible in this commitment or goal. Maybe we could define success a little bit different way. So the conclusion I came to after all of this was this: to improve commitments, to love them more, feel great about them more, you want to love the work and be flexible with the outcome. And the best way to love the work and be flexible with the outcome is to develop connection and develop perspective. And the way towards connection and the way towards perspective was to let my damn imperfect life right in the front door and ask it to walk me up and to the right. Imperfection creates connection and perspective, creates love of work, and flexibility of outcome. As it turns out, in everything I learned, imperfection is just commitment's secret weapon. Thank you.